It is interesting that nature will acknowledge God's presence, and yet we who are made in His image fail to do that. That's a question you can't help but ask yourself when you're reading Psalm 114. My name is Gray. I'm going through the book of Psalms, and yes, we're looking at Psalm 114. Now, it does not have an author, but what we do know is that from Psalm 113 to 118, these Psalms were recited during the Passover. So Psalm 114 really fits in nicely because it talks about the time that the Israelites came out of Egypt. But with this twist, let's jump in and see what it is about. It's a very short psalm. It's only got 8 verses. And like I said, it's a journey from when the Israelites came out of Egypt, but with a slight twist. Verse 1 and 2 talks about, let me just read it. When Israel came out of Egypt, Jacob from the people of foreign tongue, just talking about the time they came out of Egypt. Number 2, verse 2 says, Judah became God's sanctuary, that God was with them. His very presence was there. Israel, his dominion, and that's where he was. Israel was God's dominion. And it says, because of this, verse 3 says, the sea looked and fled, the Jordan turned back. So from here, he's talking about the things that were happening from around how nature reacted to the Israelites, so much so that the sea, and it's talking about the Red Sea, how it parted at the time when the Egyptians were come on, Gray. The Egyptians were chasing them, and then the Jordan turned back, and then that's the same thing. That Jordan turned back, parted when Joshua and the ark went through there, and the mountains leaped like rams. I believe he was talking about around about the time when Mount Sinai was earthquake. It was trembled when God spoke. But and then there's another reference as well of nature where it says in verse 8, it says, who turned the rock into a pool, the hard rock into springs of water, just referencing the time that Moses touched the rocks and then the water came out. So why do it this way? Why referring to how nature reacted to God's presence? But really, that's it. Verse 5 says it says, why was it sea that you fled? Why mountains did you leap like rams, you hills like lambs? Verse 7 is the answer. Tremble, earth, at the presence of the Lord. So what they're doing is they're saying that even nature recognized the presence and the majesty of God, so much so that they reacted when He spoke. And that begs then the question, which I said at the beginning, is why then, if nature in itself sees and knows and acknowledges God, then you and I, we fail to do that. God is speaking to us every day through His Word, through the Bible, through the people that He has sent out. And yet we don't want to acknowledge, we don't want to react, we don't want to submit ourselves to God. That's a question you just got to ask yourself. And maybe from where you are, you don't believe the words, you don't believe that these things really did happen. You only need to search archaeological books and you'll see that there is evidence that these things happen. But nonetheless, God has created you and I in His image, and He has given us His word. And He's given us examples of His very presence, His power, His authority. And the thing that is missing is for your reaction, your submission, our obedience to God. And I hope this kind of makes you start thinking about it. God bless you.